In HTML, we have two types of images, content images and background images. In this lesson, we're going to talk about content images, and we'll talk about background images in the next lesson. So below this video, I've attached a zip file. Inside the zip file, you're going to find a bunch of images. So download the zip file, uncompress it, and then drag and drop those images onto the images folder. So these are the images we're going to work with throughout this section. Now, back to our markup. Earlier, we talked about the image element. Let's review it one more time because we're going to use it throughout this section. So each image element should have two attributes, source and alt. We're going to set the source to images/meal.jpg and alt, which is short for alternative text, to a description of this image. Now, do you remember why we need this? There are two reasons. One reason is for blind people. Blind people cannot see images. They use screen readers, and these screen readers read out the text on the screen for them. So here we have to type a good description of this image for these blind people. In this case, we can say a bowl of salmon and curry. So let's take a look. Here's what we get. Now there's another use case for the alt attribute. Sometimes the user is on a poor connection and one or more images may not be downloaded. In those cases, the user will see the text that we type here. So it's really important to come up with a really descriptive text. So this is all about the alt attribute. Now, sometimes the images we have don't really have any useful content. They're mainly used for decorative purposes. For example, let's change this to line.jpg. Take a look. This image is purely used for decoration. In those cases, we should set the alt attribute to an empty string or an empty pair of quotes. Why is that? If you leave out the alt attribute, the screen readers will read out the name of the file, like line.jpg. Sometimes our file names are not descriptive, so we don't want a screen reader to read out the name of a file. So as a best practice, for decorative images, always set the alt attribute to an empty pair of quotes. Now, let's go back to meal.jpg. So this image that we have here, by default, is shown at its real size. So here we have a 400 by 400 pixel image. And what we see here is the real size of this image. Now, as I told you before, using CSS, we can scale an image. So we can give this element a class like meal. And then here we define a rule and set the width to, let's say we want this image to take up the entire width of the viewport. So we set it to 100 VW. Now take a look. Now there's a problem here. Our image looks blurry. Can you see that? We have lost some of the details because this image is originally 400 by 400, but we're showing it at a much bigger size and we don't have enough pixels or data about those details. That's why the image looks blurry. This is the problem with raster images. Scalable vector graphics or SVG files don't have this problem, but we cannot show a photo of a meal using an SVG file because defining this shape using mathematics is really complex. We need so many lines and curves to get this image, and in reality, we will never be able to produce a real image with mathematics. So this is all about content images. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about background images.